the Army Career Skills Program.
Morning.
Thank you, Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Mirage. First of all, it's an honor to be here, so thank you. I work for the U.S. Army Headquarters Installation Management Command, and I'm here to talk to you about our Revolutionary Career Skills Program. In 2013, the Army was facing unprecedented unemployment rates, and we were putting soldiers out into our communities with paying over $500 million in unemployment compensation. And that money comes off the top of the Army's operating budget, so it's less money for us to fight and win wars, which is our primary mission. So we knew that we needed to do something to reduce that unemployment compensation, and we began looking at veteran training programs, thinking that if we got veterans into training programs, we could get them into jobs, and that would reduce unemployment compensation. But we soon found out that many veterans were dropping out of those programs because they couldn't afford simple things like rent and transportation or daycare to attend those training programs. And from that, we found a lot of barriers that our veterans were facing. And along the same time, Senator Patty Murray in Washington State passed the Veterans Opportunity to Work Act, and that was signed into law and gave the military services the authority to begin taking soldiers on active duty within their last 180 days and putting them in training programs that would promise a post-military career. And with that permission, we developed our career skills program. Our goal was really to get rid of the barriers that our veterans had been facing, and to do that, we had to look at what we thought was going to be a pretty quick and easy win. We thought we had a simple program design. We would just attract companies to provide free training. We would pay their salaries while they were still on active duty, house them and feed them, and the companies would have a quick win because they had saved a lot of onboarding costs and a return on investment. What we found out is that it was a lot harder than we thought. We have fence lines for a reason, so we keep companies out, and we had to find a way to break down those barriers on our Army installations. We also knew that many of our corporations had misconceptions about our veterans, lots of scary stories that they thought were real-life situations, lots of PTSD worries and concerns. So we had to focus on breaking down those barriers, and then within our Army we had a culture that was fighting and winning wars and training soldiers for that, not training them to leave. So we had a lot of barriers within the Army that we had to break down as well. And when we started doing that, we found that if we focused on what our soldiers did best, which is the skills they bring to our corporations, that was really the answer. Things like discipline, showing up early, being drug-free, working late, working in teams, reading manuals, all the things that we teach them to do, being creative and finding out-of-the-box solutions for corporations. And from that, we started to develop partnerships, and we created a really amazing partnership with the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy. And with Microsoft, we were able to have Microsoft work with a university partner and suddenly changed how that university delivered its curriculum to meet Microsoft's training needs. And there was lots of training and changes that had to go on in that world. And for the corporation, it was important for them to introduce mentoring sessions within that curriculum so that they created a pathway for veterans directly into Microsoft and a corporate safety net. So they connected veterans in Microsoft to do those mentoring sessions, and suddenly the university was infusing liberal arts skills within their highly technical curriculum. For us in the Army, the success of that then meant that we were creating within the Army a soldier life cycle model. So we were looking at soldiers across their life cycle as opposed to just when they come in or when they leave, and creating ambassadors in our communities, on our university campuses, and helping us recruit our next generation of soldiers. So if you could tell a good story when you leave the Army, you're going to recruit a soldier to come into the Army, and that's what we wanted. Our unemployment rate dropped to about 100 million this year. We're very proud of the success we've had in this program, in part due to this program. We have a 93% employment rate, and these are not just jobs. These are white-collar, blue-collar, and gray-collar careers. And they have lots of benefits, and they're making a lot of money. We focused our career skills program on high-growth labor markets, so we looked to transportation, computer science, construction to logistics, automotive technology to hotel and restaurant management, to financial management, to manufacturing, and to engineering. We also knew the program model could be replicated, so we started sharing what we were doing with our sister services. When we did that, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Air Force followed suit, and all of them have programs in the career skills today. We also began looking inside our federal programs. So the Department of Veteran Affairs was a big partner for us. They had a huge processing problem with their claims, as many of you probably read in the newspapers. And they needed people to come in and work and become general servant or general federal employees, such as myself, working in the VA. And also the Army Corps of Engineers needed lots of folks on their projects.
Thank you. That was very quick and to the point, I have to say.
Thank you.
Well said. Robert.
You mentioned one corporation, very prominent one. How many corporations are partners in this endeavor?
So we have 153 programs right now, and about 3,000 corporations that partner with us or partner with our partners. So we soon found out that many of them could partner with our big companies. So Microsoft, for example, partnered with 500 companies by 2020. Many of them are their competitors because not everybody could go to work for Microsoft.
Thank you.
One of the things I thought was interesting was how you asked the soldiers themselves what they were interested in. Mm-hmm. And can you describe how you did that and how they, when they figured out this is what I want to do, what were the things they'd want to do, and then how they would be trained to do what they wanted to do?
We kind of found that out by mistake. I mean, we really thought that people that, and I'm using the Microsoft example, but that they would go into coding because they were computer engineers in the Army. And what we found out is they were cooks, emergency medical technicians, they were linguists. To them, it was just another recipe, just another body system, just another language. And we found out they had these really amazing transferable skills that I think we didn't really always appreciate were there. And so we began, when we started counseling them and working with them about what is it you want to be when you leave the Army. It wasn't necessarily looking at what they were doing currently in the Army, but what they wanted to do. So there was a lot of emphasis around what are you good at?
How did you figure that out?
We used the backbone of our post-secondary college advising programs. So we had them sit down with college advisors, professional guidance counselors, to make determinations about what it is that they would be good at and what they would love to do. But what really happened, I think, is that programs would run with certain start and end dates, and if you were getting out after a program began or before, and you couldn't line up with those dates, we had problems. So we found an authority that allowed our soldiers to travel from one location to another to participate in a program, and that was a huge effort to get an exception to policy for that, so that they could pursue what they wanted to do as opposed to just what was available.
You alluded to, you touched on some of the perceptions that some of our very brave men and women post-military service. How did you overcome that particular issue with the companies, and are there any services that follow the soldier into the workforce if they are having some challenges?
Absolutely, and the best way to really overcome a barrier is proof of concept. And so once our soldiers got out into these many corporations, they came back to talk to their buddies about it, so that brought more people to us. And the corporations started standing up and saying, holy cow, we've been looking for people with these skills in this workforce for a long time, and we found them. We can't get enough of them. How can we get more of them? And they suddenly saw the transferability of skills that we knew they always had, or at least the quality of their skills. So they started talking to one another. And we just had a few very successful programs, and it just caught on like wildfire. We also had 6 region coordinators who had multi-state responsibility, and they really spread the news from one location to another to help replicate the program, and then reaching out to the other services as well. I think many of those corporations, like the example I gave with Microsoft, wanted to create a tribe within Microsoft of like veterans that could support one another. That was a whole corporate change for them. They had to go through identifying who was a military veteran in their organization and then bring those people together in a meaningful way. You hear corporations like Starbucks talk about a name tag for the baristas that has a little marking on it that indicates that person is a veteran of the military services. Things like that started to grow as a result, I think, of this kind of growth and success.
So the Army has long used diversity as a avenue for meritocracy. You've been very successful with the construction trades. in terms of measures of diversity, women, people of color, getting them into the construction trades, do you have any data on that, or can you speak to that?
Yes, actually, many of the corporations in the construction industry or in what we call highly skilled trades are really hurting for women, for females. And so many of our corporations have come to us and said we want to do female-only training programs in those fields. But finding the individuals that want to work in those fields has been a challenge for us. And they're really good at it, but it might not necessarily be what they want to do. The other thing that I think we know is that the Army is a really wonderful cross-section of what our society really looks like. And so we were putting people out of the Army of every ethnicity and race and age, of every rank, and all of them faced the same struggle. If they couldn't find something in 6 months, they started to fall, and they fell really hard. And we had a lot of social problems as a result of that. So creating these ambassadors in our communities really helps us bring in that next generation. I hope I answered your question. I think that we also have programs that have decided that they want to branch out to support military spouses, most of whom are female, but not always. And their efforts are really, hey, if the military service member is transitioning, so too is the family. And if they're going to move to a new economy and a new location, we want to employ that spouse as well, because we don't want the problems of homelessness or difficulty paying bills.
One of the, is I thought one of the fascinating aspects of the proposal is that you guys have figured out how to resolve tension. And the way you put it, training an officer to leave the military versus training them to fight and win wars while they are there. And that really struck me. The question is, how baked in to the norms of the Army do you think that idea is? What I mean by that is, let's assume that the Army's in, I hope not, but we're in theaters, multiple theaters around the world. Will there be a tendency to shift that back to, well, we need to more focus on fighting and winning wars and not so much on, or do you guys have other byproducts? One you said was, well, they go out and say good things and more recruitment. Any other information that says, well, this actually makes a better soldier?
Right. So our commanders understand that the Army has to pay unemployment compensation, and it comes off of their training budgets. And they want to have a lot of money in their training budgets. So there's an incentive there for them to reduce the unemployment compensation, because that just adds more money to our operating revenue. But in addition, this military life cycle model really grew out of this problem to help commanders understand that there was really value in taking care of a soldier across their life cycle. And so from the moment they enter the Army to the moment they leave, looking at them as someone who will transition. Right now in 2018, we have about 75,000 soldiers leaving the Army. We're leaner than we ever were before. Our strength is only about 470,000 military in the Army. And because we're leaner, our commanders face a lot of pressure to keep somebody right until the very end when they're going to get out. And so helping them see that there's also a value in training them and training the next generation of recruits is really important for us. And so we did that within the military, but it's a constant struggle because our leadership changes every 2 years. So we're always going out and talking to command teams on every one of those 76 locations where we operate this program.
In addition to the kind of promise of a job, do any of the programs also provide a certificate of some kind for completion of the training so that it could be used for another employer or later in their career?
Yeah, so one of the things we purposely tried to do was focus the Career Skills program in a niche that wasn't met. So we have a lot of college programs that help soldiers get degrees, as I know you're familiar with. And we also have just introduced the first voluntary credentialing program for all the services. So that's another camel on my back. And the Career Skills program did have a lot of industry recognized specific credentials within their training program for example, OSHA would be a great example, right? Some of those are unique to the industry, and some of them have more broader certification capability. And so we had, for example, people who were 88 mics, which are truck drivers, who wanted to stay in the transportation industry and drive a truck. And so bridging that gap has been something that we've been extending the career skills program to do. But initially, it's not really been its focus, because we say if soldiers want to get those credentials in a voluntary way, let's give them the resources to do that. This is to connect them to a career. But yeah, they get credentials that they can take with them.
There's another group that is transitioning from one environment to another that's completely different, but faces similar challenges in getting into employment, and that is people coming home from corrections facilities.
Yes.
Do you think this is applicable in that world?
It's fascinating that you say that to me, because it's one of the conversations I had with my boss before I left, that to me incarcerated non-criminal offenders are in fact a population that would benefit from this type of program extremely well. They're of course in a contained environment. They can have structured training. It's leading to a career when they get out. There are many industries that need that talent.
And there's a scheduled departure.
And there's a scheduled departure. So I think this is, this program has a lot of replicability. I was talking about youth programs as well. So.
Well, thank you, Amy.
Thank
and
you.
Congratulations for your persistence.
Thank you.
And also talking to all those commanders,
I know. It's not easy.
re-educating
Yes,
them.
that's right,
As
we
well
are.
as your soldiers every year.
Yes, that's right.
Kudos
Thank
to
you very much.